always don't cut corners, do great work. The second thing you can do is make sure that you're engaging your fans. And this is probably not rocket science either, but I answer every email that I get. You can imagine I got 6.5 million downloads a month. I get a lot of email. I answer all of it.
I think that that's really what matters when it comes to turning people into fans. It's how often do they feel like something they can't find anywhere else? Would they miss you if you were gone? And to the extent that they would, you're going to have a series of fans.
The part of what we love to do is that like we do have the Reed Hastings and the Eric Schmidts of the world, but we also try to find the people who we think are going to be the next Eric Schmidts of the world. So being the sort of tastemaker in terms of the audience or the guests that we put in front of our audience is something we take a lot of pride in and is usually really, really fun.
When you upload a clip on social media, like 90% of people don't have the sound on. So if you're going to upload a clip or a video, you want to have captions on it, and subtitle automatically transcribes the caption. So that way you just add the title and you can choose like the different video format, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, IGTV, and you just upload it there. So I think really just giving people like a sample of your podcast, give them a clip. And if they like it, then maybe they'll go check out the full podcast. So that's been a great strategy.
I've found that by focusing on myself as the sole proprietor of content, it's forced me to really, really double down on amazing content. It has to be. It has to be. If I was relying on guests, it's easy to sit back, ask a nice question and call it a day. But because I don't do guests, it's forced me to create really, really great content. And it's worked.
So I've had people come up at conferences and literally give me a hug and say, "You've changed my life." Like I was in this dead end job and I was not liking it. I started listening to your show, then I took your courses, then I'm now, a software engineer at Cisco or whatever. And it's like night and day from where it was 2 years ago for me. And like, that is a super fan, right? That person is like, you've made an impact on them and they're going to remember it. Right.
Mm-hmm. You want people committing to like giving you a rating. You want people committing to give you feedback. You want people committed to kind of helping talk about your show and things like that.
Who is that person that I'm looking to serve? What are their problems? Well, like, where are they in their personal development journey? What resources are they ready to receive within that journey? If I would have thought that through a little bit more, then I could have catered my messaging and content and branding around that a little bit better, so that I'd be able to deliver, higher quality to that specific person.
Podcast changed my life. I started listening to podcasts about 5 or 6 years ago when I moved to the West Coast, and I've gotten more value from podcasts than any mentor, any book, any movie, any video, any training, any course, any event. Podcasts are number one for me.
I started reaching out to people and asking if they wanted to have a phone call. I had so many phone calls with people that told me this was the greatest phone call I've had in I don't know how long. And I was thinking to myself, it's a shame that these phone calls aren't being recorded anywhere. It's kind of a disservice to the world that they're not, honestly, because if they're helping this one person with this situation, well, then it could probably help someone else who's in a similar situation. So the most underrated tactic I've used to attract listeners is literally calling them on the phone.
I'm friends with some of the biggest content creators in the world. And I sat down with them. I'm like, tell me your secret. And they all said the same exact thing. And it was consistency. Consistency being the number one thing to grow your audience. And that's when I realized, I was like, that was my aha moment. I was like, let's just stay consistent. Our first episode we released of Group Chat got 50 downloads. The second episode got 25. We lost half our listeners after 1 week. So off to a slow start. It wasn't till a year later did we realize we had built a real audience. And then it slowly scaled from there.
Another thing that in hindsight, I realized what helped me was I found anchor PR companies. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to be having like a one-on-one with a brand and scheduling that in, but I actually found key PR companies who managed, 20 or 30 female founded companies and were able to organize 20 of those episodes for me instead of me just organizing one.
There is never a level that you enter in business where you don't continue to know your user. So the PPC ads and my organic that I use both, that helps me know my audience. And then I get new customers and then I know them, I interact with them and I know them even more intimately.
I can't believe how many like articles and things I've read. It's like, oh, you need all the social medias. You need Facebook, you need TikTok, you need Twitter, you need Instagram and all this stuff. And in my experience, I've found that to be a really, really bad strategy. Find one with a strong audience and stick to just that.
Within like 2 months, I had like 7,000 of Gary Vee's followers. And then every time I commented on his post, I would be like the top comment with 100 likes. And then everybody would be like, who's this girl who's always the top comment on Gary Vee's posts? And I got a lot of following from that. And everybody at first used to know me from being like Gary Vee's like fan, you know, that was like always the number one post. And I got a lot of attention like that.
I think a lot of podcasters are scared, or just people in general. This is like a business in general kind of thing, but they're scared to ask for what they want. And I am not scared to ask for what I want. So if I open my podcast every single time and I'm like, you just listened for free. Okay. So your payment today is a subscription, is a review, and is a share. I would love that and appreciate it so much.
The biggest thing that helps with retention is making content in a way that it's like, okay, I need to listen to more of this. Like they need to leave the episode. Okay, I'm better off after listening to this podcast, and I like that feeling, and I want to come back.
We made the right decision to outsource production from the word go. And I know a lot of people think, oh, it's easier and cheaper to do it myself. And I honestly don't think it is. Like, I honestly think if you were to spend that time attracting a sponsor or getting higher quality or caliber interviewees, or, you know, making sure that the research is really strong, and then paying someone who's really good at the editing to do that part for you, I mean, it just increases the quality of your podcast. Having someone edit out all the ums and ahs and weird things that really annoy you as a listener is so valuable. And unless you want to figure out how to do that yourself and spend hours doing it, you know, there are some really affordable ways of outsourcing it that I have no regrets about paying for from the day, you know, from the first day we started.
I think that's the most powerful thing, is if you know what your listener wants and you feed them a steady diet that responds to what they want, you've got them. I mean, you've got them. And very simply, it's not what they need, but what they want.
I wish I would have just started when I was thinking about it. So for anybody that's listening to this or watching this and you're thinking, you know, like, oh, next year or next month or after this or after that, like, stop putting it off and get started, because you're never going to grow if you never get your show off the ground.
A podcast, in my opinion, is, you know, equal parts entertainment and equal parts, you know, education. And the entertainment comes in that when people know what's going on in your life, you become part of their life, you know. And it's always amazing to me that when I connect with listeners outside of the show, so to speak, how much they know about what's going on in my life.
On the most recent episode, we announced we're going to do some swag, like we're going to do mugs or something like that for Made You Think. And somebody messaged me saying, can we do an Aquatic Apes one? Right. So it's like, that was probably 2 years ago now, that the last time we mentioned Aquatic Apes. Like, it's a long time, but people remember it. And I think that's, you know, to me, that's like the sign of like a fan rather than a listener.
I will say in the last 6 months, I've seen a huge shift in the engagement with the people listening. And the primary reason for that is I focused in on one platform for engagement. So I basically ask everyone on the podcast, if you enjoyed this, let me know on Twitter, or let me know your thoughts on Twitter. Whereas previously I was spreading myself too thin. I was saying, message me on Instagram, comment on YouTube, write a review. And I think that's a lot smarter, especially if you're starting from scratch.
This relates to Twitter again. Is Twitter, there's a thing that's called lists on there, which is basically you could compile a separate format for people. And I actually called one of them Interesting People of Las Vegas. And I went around and looked for people who were from Las Vegas and started adding them to this list. And the follow rate from that was probably about 30 to 50%, because people found that I deemed them interesting. So they're like, oh, this must mean that this show is interesting because they're hosting this kind of talent.
I think TikTok is massively underrated for podcasters. Before I started my podcast on TikTok, I did heaps of research to figure out who else was doing this. It took me hours, and I found like 2 or 3 accounts that are doing this. So it's massively underrated. It is a lot of work, but like, as I mentioned, I think like at least 90% of my audience has come through there.
if you follow a seasonal form, you as the content creator off the hamster wheel, it allows you to invest more time in raising the bar for the content that you put out. And it also gives your fans a chance to miss you.
I would just say, like, look, if you're starting out, prepared to eat poo-poo for a while, because like I talk about all the time, if you're looking to build an audience, probably an 18 to 24 month journey. And if you're looking to be successful in business, it's probably a 3-year journey to start to see success, right? So it takes a long time.
I really do wish that I started it a lot earlier. You know, here I am, 26, Book Thinkers is a few years old now. I think we could have started it from day one, and using the tactics and methods that we do to attract guests. Yes, it was very easy with the following on Instagram, you know, as an opportunity for these guests to come on and sell books, but I could have been a little bit more creative, I think, and had a little bit more confidence earlier on.
When I talked to Tim Ferriss, I remember I was at Noah Kagan's house up on the roof, and right next to Tim Ferriss was this guy, Charlie Hone. Charlie Hone went on to become a mega success on his own. Great author, great human being. How many people didn't even think to go and talk to the person who was hanging out next to Tim Ferriss?
I pulled in every favor under the sun, like mates that I used to work with, people I'd been to university that are now living in Hong Kong, and I know they know this person, like ex-girlfriends. Like I pulled in every favor that I could in a desperate attempt to try and get as many good guests as I could, and it worked.
A pattern interrupt or a hook in a video would be, how does it look? And then also doing something to grab someone's attention, like I just did with my book. So no matter, like, if I were to give my book away for free, I'd be like, hey guys, guess what? I have this book for free. I can't wait to give it to you guys. And people are like, what the frick's going on? Rather than just being normal.